All meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the July 11th, 2023 Greenfield City Council meeting. Roll call, please.
Mayor White,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Angelon,
Here.
Councilmember Martinez,
Here.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Here.
Right. Invocation by Pastor Robert Mullen.
Good evening, everyone. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, I pray that you will guide our council members as they meet and discuss matters with regard to our city of Greenfield. I pray that they shall choose to do that which is moral and rational. I pray that their motivation in everything that they want to do is the good of the public and not their own. I pray that they will be able to solve our city problems and make good policies that address them. Help them to be competent and excellent in their governance. And I pray, Lord, that you will just have your way, reveal yourself to each and every one of us, and we'll be sure to give you all of the honor and the glory and the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
You all please stand for the pledge. Ready? All right, agenda review.
No changes, Mr. Mayor.
Right.
Is this one I would ask for the approval items? You can bring it up now or when the item comes up. It's up to you and see whether your fellow council members have the same interest. Okay. I'd like to go ahead and do that just before we get to the to approving the consent calendar. I would actually like to pull K2 tonight. The reason being that we didn't announce a deadline. We didn't post a deadline in any of our advertisements that we were, wanting to get somebody from District 1. So I think we give everybody from District 1 equitable opportunity. Yeah. To give everybody, an equitable opportunity. I think that it's important that we post it with a hard deadline and then go from there, just because even, the appearance of something, any kind of impropriety is not good. So right. I would rather do this the right way and have a hard deadline posted for everybody.
I will agree with you on that as well.
I don't agree with it. I know that we need to move on. But I mean, I've gotten a lot of phone calls, a lot of text messages from community asking, what are we doing here? So, I mean, I'm for it if we're actually going to set something in stone tonight and we're going to take care of it in 2 weeks. But if we're going to keep prolonging this, for whatever reason it's happening, we're doing injustice to District 1.
I would say that we have a duty to District 1 to ensure that all of its residents know of the deadline. Because I also was contacted by people who didn't know, why it was being posted, that it was closed or hearing it, but we didn't announce it. So I went back, I contacted City Manager Wood. Remember we met last week, I brought this up since last week to him because there was no deadline, but I think by the time that we had our conversation, it was too late in the week. And so, the agenda went out already, even though we hadn't properly posted deadlines with the announcement. So I agree, we do need to move on. And I would even propose that we have a special meeting next week to appoint somebody, but I just think that we need to do the right thing with announcing a deadline so that the opportunity is open to all of District 1.
No, and I agree with you 100% on that. Like I said, I think the confusion came because Anne had put a date on it, not realizing that people were going to take that as a deadline. And so a lot of people thought that was the deadline. And actually, I wasn't here at that meeting, so, and I know that now that you guys didn't set one. So, that. But I think that, we really have to do our due diligence about getting the information out there if that's what you want to do. because personally, I feel like Councilmember Antoine should have done that back in May 20-something when she resigned. And I think that, now we're having the city do it, if you're representing a district, it's your responsibility. They voted for you. We need to take care of that district. So that's my personal feeling. But if we're going to move this along, and I would be happy with the special meeting also, just to get it done, and the district needs to be represented. And the seat is only for, by the time we get to it, it's only 17 minutes. So that the person will be sitting.
I'd like to say that I did agree to hold it off until July because you did request that we focus on the budget, which I agree to. So I am willing to put this off because I do feel that we, not just as the council, but we as the city did not set the hard deadline. It probably should have been a deeper conversation of when we're going to stop receiving applications, how many days we're going to have to go over the applicants as a council individually, and things like that. So I'm on board with pushing a hard deadline within the next week or so, and then having a special meeting next week. Since it is my seat, I am speaking on behalf of the District 1. There are people who are interested that didn't know that there was a set deadline, which there wasn't. So I just want to give them the opportunity to submit their applications if they are still interested.
I agree. I think for transparency's sake, a hard deadline would be good. I don't know whether that's this Friday or when that is, but maybe a hard deadline on this Friday, and then set up a meeting next week to just for this specific item.
You could choose the date for the special meeting, and then Anne has to agendize that 24 hours in advance. So perhaps do the deadline 24 hours before the agenda date. So start with the meeting date and then kind of back into the deadline.
Okay.
That would be nice.
I would propose a week from today, which would be the 18th. And then the deadline, making the deadline all the way until pretty much the end of day Monday, right?
No, she would need, I think Anne will probably need a little more time than that just to compile everything.
For the
So
application. But she can speak to that. I think.
I would think Friday makes a lot of sense. That's usually when the agenda comes out. So that would give us time to review the information. So,
But if Friday would be the deadline, we wouldn't actually get the application submitted until Monday, correct?
I'm saying,
well, the agenda just needs to be published on Monday by 6 p.m.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Just the agenda, so we know that.
I think agenda and deadline should be 5 o'clock on Friday.
So we're talking 2 weeks.
No, 1 week.
Oh,
That's right.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get it in.
so I would just say that's really only 3 more days. So if we would be able to get all of these like updated notices to the community on all of our, social media pages and all of that, and so that we all have the opportunity to share it with that hard deadline, then we could all do that, like make it a priority for like first thing tomorrow morning. That would be great.
So,
You guys all okay with
Friday or Monday?
Friday, I'm ready Friday.
Friday gives
For deadline.
3 more days. Yeah. And then we'll review them over the weekend and do a meeting on Tuesday. So if anybody is interested, they should be sure and get the application and get it back to us by Friday, 5 o'clock.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So we are pulling that item K2 for information. Do we need to vote on that, or are we just?
No, I see there's consensus.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No, because the item was pulled from the agenda. That was what the discussion was about.
All right. We'll move on to item F. Public comments of the audience regarding items not on the agenda. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the council on any item not on closed session, consent calendar, public hearing, and city council business. Under state regulation, no action can be taken on non-agenda items, including issues raised under this agenda item. Members of the public should be aware of this when addressing council regarding items not specifically referenced on this agenda. I just wanted to add one more item here. The last meeting, we had a lot of response to comments. I think we should definitely limit that and maybe follow up with people after they public comments. So, all right.
Okay.
John, thank you.
Thank you. No, this isn't about raising the sewer water fees. This is a different comment. So as you know, we have a community advocacy group here in Greenfield, and we submitted, public records requests to the city. It's not no secret or anything. And so we're analyzing, and city clerk has been very workable in getting all the documents that we requested. We have a few more we're going to do this year. But that's just a heads up. Also, our group recently met with our new Congresswoman, Zoe Lofgren, in Salinas. If you have a chance, you go by our office for the city council members, introduce yourself. It was great to hear somebody that has a kind of a broad overall thinking cap on local government. But it does. We do count, even though we hear that a lot down in South Monterey County. We don't count. But yeah, we do count. And so, but my comment tonight, looking at the clock, it goes by. I may ask for a minute over or 2 minutes. I think it takes a vote by the city council. But our advocacy group, we wanted to shine a light on the V&W Oversight Committee. I think that's critical. I hear a lot of comments. I'm not here all the time. I'm working full time and I have grandkids now. So I think what I'm hearing from the community, let me just talk from the personal side. I hear a lot of where's the money and where's the cannabis money and who's getting paid this amount. And, I hear a lot of that. And so I think one of the things I learned when I was on the city council, it's not about the distribution of the information to the public. It's about engaging them and them being part of that participation. Hey, it's a lot of work. I know city managers, Susan Stanton in particular, took a lot of time to build some of these public committees. We had the Finance and Advisory Committee to the City Council. We started the code enforcement that didn't last too long, but the Budget and Finance Committee, the City Council had workshops with members of the public that were part of that Finance and Budget Committee down here on the floor so the community can come forward. So that's just an example. And going back to the V&W, I think that right now, I don't know the status. I believe it's dysfunctional. That's just a word out there. Each council member, this is approved by the city council in 2016 on May 10th. Can I ask for a minute or two so I can sum up?
Go ahead and grant that. Go ahead.
Okay. So there was a resolution 2016-33 on May 10th, 2016. The 5 members of the committee to be selected by the city council. Each council member selects a person from the community to serve as an advisory only capacity to the city council to provide oversight of the revenues, expenses pertaining to the portion of the sales tax generated by measures V&W. And actually the original was measure X in 2012. So those dollars, we all should be thanking ourselves and thanking the community because that infusion of streams of revenues is getting close to 4 million. I couldn't find it in our city manager's report, but I know that it's under 4 million and above 3.8 million just for 2 measures, not including cannabis business taxes. You're averaging about $1 million of those a year. And of course, measure C that all of us joined together to pass that measure. But on V&W, I think it's critical that the community gets engaged. Get a fresh new, 5-member V&W committee. And the city, I think, with my experience as the former mayor, I think those things, the overall community will kind of calm down a little bit. And so I just thought I'm not up here all the time. I just thought I'd share those comments that it's important to engage the community, not just a distribution of the information. Thank you very much.
John, if you can reach out to me, I can go over some of that with you at some point. Right. Anyone else for public comment?
Jurgen Smith, Broadway. On Saturday, I went out there to Patriot Park and I was checking out the soccer games that we have there. Okay. I observed the public out there urinating on the trees over there on Oak Avenue. Okay. We need to put a restroom out there. We need to build one out there. If not, get some porta potties out there for the public to use it, or cut a hole in the fence so the public can get into Patriot Park and use the restrooms over there. You know, I don't know if some of you all are thinking, oh, we'll just hold off, because up in Sacramento, they're passing a bill where it's going to be legal to urinate in public. Okay. That's not us. We're above that. Okay. We need to provide some service out there at the park for restrooms. Okay. If we're going to be the shiny city on top of the hill, you know, being number one, standing out, we need to put some restrooms out there. Okay. Thank you very much. You all have a good evening.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Clavia. I'm at 420 Cardona Circle. I've brought this up before, and a former council member assured me that he would work on this. My husband uses a wheelchair, and it's not very accessible in many areas, and areas where there are roots, tree roots that are like cracking sidewalks. Other areas don't even have sidewalks. So I'm asking the council to please set a priority on making the city wheelchair accessible. And it's not just for the handicapped, but it's also for mothers with strollers and elderly people. So please work on that. And the other issue is it's an ongoing problem. Some of the driveways are too short. So some people have very long trucks. They have 4 cars maybe. So they'll park on the sidewalk. Again, that makes it inaccessible for the handicapped. And I do think that is a violation of ADA, the American with Disabilities Act. And I think we really need to step up and work on that and make sure that we're in compliance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, go ahead.
Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Jose Vasquez. I'm a member of the Park and Recreation Committee. I'm in favor one with the mid-side unit and tablet because it's very important. A lot of people make it the place in the park, on the streets. Very important to protection. Especially not in the park. All the parks in there. Very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Stephanie Garcia. So I'm glad that your extension of this council appointment is just for a few days, because I do believe that you made your announcement in May. Everybody's been well aware of it. There were social media posts last week. So everybody knows this is coming. So I don't agree with that that nobody knows. And I'm pretty sure each of you have reached out to people to tell them. And I feel like the two applicants that applied are here tonight. They prepared for tonight, and it seemed like those two applicants weren't good enough, that you need more. And I don't think that's very nice. That's one thing. Now switch to a nice thing. I wanted to thank you all for approving the Hartnell Salinas Valley Promise. My daughter she benefited from that program, and she graduated this past May from Hartnell with her degree in psychology. So thank you for that. And I'm glad to see that you're continuing that, because I believe, you may know, either this year or next year is going to be one of the largest graduating classes of Hartnell. And I do believe that Salinas Valley Promise has a huge impact on that. And lastly, with regard to the VW committee and the Finance Advisory Board, I served on both of those. And I agree it was a lot of work. I don't think we were dysfunctional, maybe dormant for the last year, but that is in part to many of the members have gone on to different boards, Planning Commission, the Park and Rec, Cemetery District. So, and I think one member actually moved out of town. So I agree that it should be reenacted, and you guys each choose somebody, because I think fresh input would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I see one hand raised, so. Coming up.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and residents of Greenfield. I just wanted to announce that the Traffic Safety Committee documents that we've been creating and reviewing to revamp our program are live and online. We are accepting applications to be a member of the Traffic Safety Committee. There's an application online. They're also posted on Facebook and hard copies here at City Hall. The deadline to apply to be a member of that committee is July 28th at 4 p.m.
Very good. Thank you. I see a couple hands raised.
Yes. Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. My thing is right now, listening to the comment about the two applicants, I totally disagree that anybody would think that they're not good enough. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the application was not out there long enough for people to to go pull out some applications. But anyways, I'll leave that at that. But I don't think that they're not qualified. My thing also with this, I wanted to say that I noticed that they're painting some of the streets, and that's wonderful. My other thing is that right there by, I wanted to bring it to you guys' attention that right there by Burger King, when I pick up my kids from work, sometimes like at 12:30, 1 o'clock, you can't even see those lines. So I hope that they can go ahead and work on those also to bring them to light. Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura?
Good day, City Council. Any update on the construction on 12th Street, the sidewalk and the road? I think you guys need to hurry up and get some initiative and do the construction ASAP. School is about to start, and there's a big concern, or that should be your guys' priority on our kids' safety. There's no sidewalk. They're going to be passing through the street, and there's going to be oncoming traffic. So I think you guys really need to push yourselves to don't delay this process on that street, and so we don't lose that grant either. Everything seems to be delayed lately. Same thing with the sign. That's taking forever to get a sign up there in our Greenfield highway, but I don't know what are you guys doing. It's a very slow process. Everything gets delayed. I think you guys need to pick up your guys' work and start doing some changes soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments? Not, I will go ahead and move to comments from city council.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to. It's not like I'm on the microphone. I do want to address just what Ms. Garcia said about the deadline, or this decision not being nice. And I just want to say that I personally am not up here to be nice. Not that I'm trying to be mean, but I'm up here to be ethical and respectful of all of the residents. And I think that this is the ethical and respectful decision to make. This is not personal. So I would really, that assumption is incorrect. I just want to make sure that I emphatically state that this is not a personal thing against our candidates. I know and appreciate anybody that comes up here and does this. That was the process I did. It's nerve-wracking, putting yourself out there. And it has absolutely nothing to do with what applications we received. It's being contacted by residents of our community with concern about not knowing that the deadline was there. If we hear that, and it sounds like I wasn't the only one that heard that, as a council, we need to respond. So I acted in the way that I feel is appropriate today. And I suggested something that I feel is appropriate for our residents. And I do stand by that. And I, again, would strongly reiterate that this is not personal. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was really relaxed, Mayor. I'm just happy to be back. I know last time I couldn't be here because of work related issues, working up in Sacramento and in Santa Cruz County. But just to inform the public that I know COVID is down and everybody is kind of like, going back and gathering. There's been a bug going around. I just got it recently where I was in bed with fever for like 3 days. So please still be careful out there, especially with our little ones. Like Mayor Pro Tem Montalon always mentions, school is right around the corner and our little ones need to be prepared and ready to go back to school. So just kind of like sharing a little bit of my personal life out there to please stay safe. There is going to be a huge event coming up at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, which is the Latino Conservation Week, which is amazing because this is a national event that happens every year. And the aquarium has really been trying their best to really include the different organizations, different cities that are actually taking an initiative in conservation. So if anybody has the time and is willing to just kind of leave the hot weather, like the mayor mentioned a couple of minutes ago that him and I were talking, go out to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. This is Saturday, beginning at 11, ending at 3 p.m. And it's a free event for everybody. You will see me out there. So sadly, I won't be in town to miss a celebration, but I do want to thank the ladies in advance. So like many of you know that there's a county organization called CCA, which is the Community Center for Community Action, which has existed forever. They have different trainings throughout the cities where they educate the public on civic engagement, participation, literally just building leadership. I was able to attend the ceremony last year. This year, I won't be able to be there, but I know that I have asked the mayor to give them a certificate of appreciation for these wonderful participants of the city of Greenfield. So that's going to be happening. Another thing too that I will end my comments with is I know that we constantly get a lot of emails, messages through our various outlets that we have. And I know that I did get a message from a community member requesting some help when it comes to, we have the power as elected in the city to be able to give letters of support or recommendation when it comes to our community residents that are transitioning from their undocumented status to becoming permanent residents. And I always love to be able to sit down with that community member and give those letters of support as an elected official. But I really do want the timely manner, at least for us to be able to sit down and kind of go over that information. So just to let the public know, yes, as elected officials, we are allowed to give that information out, that letter of support. But if they could just give us in a timely advance, because I mean, from one day to another, it does not work. So just reminding the folks that, yes, I'm available, but just give me heads up so I could be able to support and help you with that. And also, I know that we also get letters here at our City Hall. And I got this letter that is really concerning. And I just want to let the community, the concerned citizen who delivered this letter, that First of all, thank you for bringing this information forward. I read it and it is concerning, and I know that I spoke to legal counsel regarding the letter itself, and that we want to be as transparent as possible. And I know that anybody has the right to come forward and speak on any matter. And they shouldn't feel like they should be retaliated. And I do take this letter seriously, and thank you for bringing it forward. And it's really concerning, and I will end my comment with that, Mayor.
Very good. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank the council for excusing me for the last meeting. My grandson's being deployed to Japan, and after that, he's leaving to Korea. So he asked to spend some special time with me. So I took it upon myself to go ahead and go. So I'd like to thank you for doing that for me. It means a lot. I wanted to thank the city manager and staff for getting that budget done, and for the council for approving it. I know that a lot of time and effort go into that, and it's a lot of work. So I'd really like to thank you for that. I'd also like to thank staff for the 4th of July event that they put on. I was not able to be here. Again, I was traveling in Washington, and but I heard that everything went really well, and I'm just really happy that the staff was able to do that for the community. I asked, I think it was not the last meeting before, maybe, that I asked for a report on code enforcement. And so I was wondering where we are on that. And yeah, if I could get something.
Yeah, I think we're scheduling it for next meeting.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And while I was gone at the last meeting, I did listen in, and I did hear a community member talk about that district representatives should be out looking at the streets and driving down the streets because they're being repaired. And so I wanted to let the community know that I do that. I do have in my district 3 different community members that come to my home, pick me up, and drive me around town to go look at things. I try to tell them that's not my district, but we go ahead and we cross over Oak and we go into the other district. But it is, I'm a very visual person, so I need to see things. I really don't like to do anything on email or by phone or text. I like to see things. So when a community member asks me to go out and look at something, I do my part. And I'm sure that city manager and Jamie can attest to that I'm constantly emailing. And I just think it's really important that we engage. It's not just so much with a phone call or answering an email. You know, people need to see your face. They need to know that you're involved in the community and that you care about the community. And the community member that stated that, I just want you to know that I am doing that. And if you ever need anything, if you want me to go look at something that you're concerned about, by all means, you're more than welcome to contact me. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
The only thing I wanted to bring up today was the email I submitted to you yesterday, Paul, about the streets. I'm not sure if other individuals are noticing the streets that have been paved. There was like foam on the streets. I don't know if you received that email, Jamie. And there's also like particles that were coming off already. So they were really concerned about it. I just wanted to, I'm not sure if that's normal. Maybe that's normal and I just don't know. But if it's not normal and it's just showing that, you know, sooner rather than later, the streets are going to start getting potholes and crumbling and falling apart. I would like us to address it now. So if you could please forward that to Public Works, Paul, that would be great. Also, anybody else out there that's having issues with the new streets, please submit pictures and emails to the city council, to the city manager, so we can make sure that all the projects in our community that are being done today are going to last for as long as we plan for them to. Because I would hate to see within a year the city having to redo something. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I have a few things. I just want to repeat Councilwoman Ortiz's comment regarding the 4th of July activities. Thank you to all the various city departments. Made the 4th of July activities safe, enjoyable, and a lot of fun. I heard a lot of great comments on the program, especially the fireworks display. Second of all, I would like to request we get a report to council on various city events for seniors. I know there's a lot of senior social tomorrow at the Memorial Hall, and a Connecting Seniors with Technology class on July 18th, 25th, and August 1st here at City Hall from 11 to 1. But I would love a report from staff on all the other things that are going on in the community for those over 60. I was hoping Public Works could put one more item on their list. A few community members have pointed out that our red curbing street markings are getting really faded and hard to see. New paint on these would look great and complement the street repairs that we've been doing. So we go right along with the other program. Remind everyone there is a cooling station. The next few days are supposed to be hot. Cooling station at the Science Center, 45 El Camino Real during the day. And finally, I would like to mention National Night Out. This year's event will be August the 2nd. It's an annual community building program that promotes community partnerships and neighborhood camaraderie in a positive atmosphere. This event will be held in the evening at Gazebo Park. I've attended in the past and it's a lot of fun, especially for kids, but come out if you can. It's a great evening. So. August 1st. Wrong date. Sorry. Thank you. Tuesday, August 1st. All right. Let's move on to the consent agenda. All matters that are listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved by one action of the city council unless a request for removal for discussion or explanation is received prior to the time council votes on that motion to adopt. Open public comments on consent. Seeing that here in chambers, I think we do have one hand raised. Iris, do you have a comment? Mayor Pro Tem, you said this hand's been raised for a while. Okay. All right. We'll move on then. Motion to approve. This is on a consent calendar.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask something. I was wondering, it says warrants and bank drafts. And I was wondering if it could be itemized for the public so we kind of know like in detail what that is about. Is that something that can be done? Because we don't really know what that is specifically. Is that something that can be done?
If you could reach out to the city manager, he can go over that with you at some point, but I believe that's all in the public record. So
It's pages 1 through 13 is the itemization.
It's online?
Correct.
Staff report. It's in the packet.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Through page 18.
All right. I need a motion to approve.
So moved, Mayor.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Item I1, presentation, city council housing element update. Staff.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Brett Slama, consultant for the city for the housing element. And what I'm going to do here is share my screen, make sure that audio and video is on mute, which it is. It's still making sound. Grateful to be with you tonight. Since the last time I was here back in February, and then we had our presentation in March. We've been doing a lot out in the community and working on the housing element. Kind of want to give you a status update as where we are as we head into kind of the next stage of housing element development and kind of go over it. I'm going to go over it rather quickly today because you do have a number of items that you're doing tomorrow. The Planning Commission has a meeting. I'll go into a little more slower detail. So if anyone's interested in that from the public, 6 o'clock tomorrow at here, when the Planning Commission reviews it, we'll go into greater detail because we'll have a little more time to go over some of these. But so it's going to come quickly. But want to go over some main items with you tonight as far as the development of the housing element goes. First of all, we want to go over with the council the public outreach that's been done to date and kind of give you some analysis from the survey data that's been given. We're going to review our AFFH findings. So this really has to do about affirmatively furthering fair housing, which is something that the state has mandated for all housing elements across the state. Looking to you as far as direction on programs, this comes from programs that the state's going to require us that we do regardless. Also programs that have been talked about in consultation with public input. Those things that the public has talked about over the last few months in our meetings. Direction on the draft site inventory. This is actually the sites that we're looking at across the city for housing, and then talk about next steps. Surveys. So we've had a survey out for the last 3 months. There have been multiple opportunities to access the survey. We've had it available at all the workshops that we've had. We've had it here at City Hall. Opportunity to respond online. We wanted to make sure, of course, and this is part of the outreach effort requirement of the state, that you're not just trying to just put a survey online and only reach the people who have access to computers. So there's multiple ways to do that. We reached out to Centro Binacional to make sure we were getting input from those that speak third languages, don't have a written language for surveys. So we did that. They translated a number of surveys for us. That's included in the data. We went to the SoCo Social, gave out surveys to the seniors, especially those that aren't comfortable with the technology. We went out to Farmers Market, gave out surveys and talked to a bunch of people that probably weren't paying, the type of people that don't come here, don't pay attention to the process, but have an opinion on housing. That's for sure. Everyone seems to have an opinion right now on housing. So we've done a lot of that. We've had 3 public workshops that have been well attended. I want to thank the city council members that have attended some of those meetings. Also, planning commissioners. Your staff has also been great. Want to really thank your community development staff and your community engagement staff as well, as terms of organizing meetings, reaching out with Centro Binacional, CCA, other groups to make sure we're really getting input across the community in multiple languages, not just English and Spanish, but the indigenous languages as well. Here's some of the data. I'm not going to go over it in detail because there's a lot of slides. So if you have additional questions about data, please feel free to reach out to me, call me. I'm available as a resource here locally to you. The age group, we know Greenfield has a very young community. These are the respondents of the survey, by the way. This is not the census data. This is who responded to the survey. But the majority of the survey respondents are between the ages of 30 and 49, but you can see other groups. This is something that reflects the community, ownership versus renters. When you look at the census data, this shows that 50% of the people that responded are renting, 40% own, and then 10% in another situation, which is pretty consistent with census data. Over the last number of years, home ownership in Greenfield has dropped consistently as renter percentage-wise has gone up over the last number of years. And this has to do with a number of factors in terms of what's built, investors that come in and buy homes and rent them out instead of being sold to families. But we are seeing a consistent increase across the board in more rental situations. And of course, the price of housing has a huge thing to do with that. Single family home is still the predominant home here, and I think you're very familiar with that. So from the people that responded to the survey, 80% live in a single family home. This is another telling statistic about Greenfield. We have probably the highest per unit average in the county. In fact, we do people per unit, and that has to do with that top part, which is multiple generations living together. That's a very consistent thing across the board. So 80% of homes in Greenfield and units that responded to the survey have multiple generations or a child under 18 at home. And that's consistent with what we know. This is a very young community. This is a multi-generational community, and very consistent with that. Where is the best place for housing? Most people, the majority here, slight majority, talked about kind of what you would call the single family subdivision. So this is going out instead of going up onto which will most likely be existing farmland out in the edges to build new subdivisions, spread out a little more. Underutilized lots was the next one, and then commercial locations, something close to that can when you have services next to you, and then you can promote walking, bicycling, more higher density living with apartments, things like that. But there's still a tendency for people to want to have that single family home and have the backyard and things like that. What programs could best address the housing needs of the community? We all know with the cost of everything, programs that address the cost of housing. Half of your survey here is all about financial assistance programs. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that and what the city's role may be going forward in that. Other things were incentives for developers to build low-income housing, incentives for developers such as fee waivers, permit reductions, things like that, as tools that the city can use to help incentivize housing. I want to give just a sampling of the comments that we received throughout the process. So we received close to 200 surveys back. We received 300 plus comments from people through the online process, through the meetings that we've had. And, I just want to share some of the highlights of some of the things we've heard over and over again. I'm not going to go over every one of them, but a bulk of the comments were about the cost of housing. That's number one on everyone's mind, and it's no surprise. Comments range from the city should have control over the price of housing. We can't really do that. More regulation on rental increases. We have very limited authority on that. More accessible payments, too many people living in homes, access to low interest rates or down payment assistance, half price rent, mortgage programs, things once again related to financial assistance programs that we know do exist out there. Desire to make sure there's a wide variety of housing options for everybody because everybody's in unique situations. Housing for independent young adults, that's something, very, very difficult. People can't leave home because they just can't afford to do it, even though they would love to do that if their situation allowed it. More education for home buying, and then really housing for all. So talking about especially workforce housing, a lot of comments about that. People that can't qualify for subsidized housing, can't afford market rate housing, and are stuck in the middle and have nowhere to go, but serve our community in a number of impactful positions. Concern about application fees on rentals, concern about agricultural housing solely being built for foreign workers and not for the community, housing for more senior housing, kind of like Magnolia Place, people wanting to really restrict housing to Greenfield residents and not people from out of town, which there's some issues about that, but these are the comments you're receiving. Just a lot. What kind of units? If you can build it, just build it. More smaller units for singles, students or professionals looking to get out that don't have a large family. One-story units for those with disabilities. Worker-sponsored housing for permanent residents. That was something talked about multiple times. High-level income housing to attract businesses and jobs. A lot of, like I said from the beginning, a lot of people are still interested in the concept of a single family home with the backyard and enough parking. That was noted a couple times. And then also people that don't want the backyard, that want a condo. So really looking at multiple options for multiple types of people that want different things. Where to build it? I'll just go back to, close to services, close to Patriot Park, next to the high school, away from Walnut. I'll just go with this last comment, the last two: build on all empty lots in any space possible. That's where we're at, really. I mean, and when we talk about housing needs, you can find it, just build it. And I think that was the overwhelming sentiment of the community is we need more housing, and however it can be done, let's get it done. Fair housing. We talk about AFFH. That's a major component of our housing element. Many comments about AFFH. And this was something we really wanted to push for in terms of making sure that we're hearing from the community. Many concerns about requests for Social Security cards for renters, people being turned away because of lack of documentation, immigration status. Talked about the H2A issue a lot, saying that they're building a lot of new housing up and down the valley, but only for foreign workers. How come they're not addressing the local workers? The burden to apply for housing. Some people commented about how that was really concerning. And you're well aware of the issues about the evictions to do improvements and then come back and raise the rent. I know you're all very in tune with that. And those are things that, one of the things is trying to figure out what the proper role of the city is compared to the state who regulates these things, and also the advocacy groups and other groups that are out there. So one of the things that we did was in response to that was not part of our original outreach was Community Engagement Department partnering with CCA to put together a renters' rights workshop for all the people that were commenting about this stuff. This is not part of the housing element specifically, but is kind of what we're trying to do in terms of education. And when we talk about programs that the city is going to take on, this is something that we want to talk about because it's important. You don't need to go over all this data, which is the duty to affirmatively further fair housing. But what it requires is that we look across the city and see, are there areas in the city that have special treatment? Are there areas in the city that get special access to resources compared to the other side? This is something that's certainly more common in bigger cities, what you would call the rich side of town, the poor side of town. Greenfield data does not suggest that. It suggests that all across the city, whether from demographics, from poverty level, from any statistic you look at, that typically across the board in our census tracts, all things are pretty equal. There are some differences. This shows the percentage of low to moderate income by census block group. You will notice that there's a higher concentration in the heart of the city. These are the older housing units, and they're typically smaller than the 4 and 5 bedroom homes that have been built recently that are out on the edges of the community. And so you will see some of that data. But when you look at, as I mentioned, demographic data and other things, we don't see any distinct difference across the city. And so our goal is that housing, whenever we're looking at housing, that wherever we put it in the city, it applies equally from a fair housing standpoint. They'll all go to the same schools. They'll go to the same stores. They'll all have the same job opportunities, and they'll all have those. There's really not a distinction between one side of the city and the other. And that's something that we've pretty much gone through and are able to do. What it does show, though, is that the community, all things considered across the region, is a low resource community. And I know no one is probably surprised by this data, but we have to show this in the report. And it talks about things such as access to economics, and a lot of comments. We talk about housing, but you'd be surprised how many of our comments at the housing meeting come back to, we need more stores, we need more jobs, we need more access to retail, more opportunities. Access to education, whether it be college, whether it be high-performing schools, things like that are a part of that. Environmental is also something that's considered in there. Pollution, your industries, those sort of things. So we have to look at the data from a regional standpoint. And you're all very familiar with this. You really have 3 areas of the county. You have the Monterey Peninsula, you have the Salinas Valley, and I would break up the Salinas Valley into Salinas and South County because the maps show the distinction. You have Greenfield in the heart of the valley, which is considered a low resource area. When you get to Salinas, those opportunities increase, and that has to do with transit, jobs, and retail. You have access to those things. And then you go to the peninsula and you see the colors, and you have access to even more in terms of the opportunities. And you all know this, it's just required part of the analysis. When you look at how it is broken up by demographics, you can see definitely the difference there. The lack of high quality transit stops in South County. So basically what we do is we have to give a report to the state on what's going on. And what this analysis is supposed to do is really show that state, you need to invest more in Greenfield. You need to make those decisions like transportation. You need to invest more in our public transportation system. You need to invest in our 1960s era interchanges so that we can support the big box or whatever retail development you want to have on Walnut Avenue, which you can't because you don't have the capacity on the bridge, which was built 50, 60 years ago. Environmental, these have to do with the issues such as pesticides and things you see in Salinas in the industrial areas where it's red because of some of the issues that they have there. Those are things we look at. They look at racially concentrated areas of affluence, which is up the Highway 68 corridor and out in Pacific Grove and Carmel. The county has to make an emphasis to put more affordable housing where people work. And so one of the things that the county has to do with their 3,500 units is put more of their affordable housing up in that area that's designated so that tourism, hospitality workers can find housing up there and not have to drive the 50 miles from here that they're living right now to get to hospitality jobs on the peninsula. So that's a bigger regional issue, but we have to analyze it here. One thing, though, that is consistent no matter where you are is everyone is paying too much. That's not a secret. There's no getting around that. It doesn't matter where you are; it's too much. When you look at your percentage of the income that you have, anyone that pays more than 30% of their salary is considered overburdened in housing, and it is something that is happening everywhere. Overcrowding. This is something that's definitely a Greenfield issue compared to the rest of the county. And you can see that in this map here. We are in that red, which shows 15 to 20%, meaning that there's more than 1 to 1.5 persons per room in a unit. And I don't think this is a surprise to any of you about this data. So what do we know about AFFH? Greenfield residents are experiencing significant overcrowding above the regional averages. Both homeowners and renters are paying way too much. Greenfield renters that are higher risk of displacement due to these rising rents when you look at the percentages. We lack the opportunities compared to higher resource areas to the north in all those topics: transportation, environment, jobs, education, healthcare, retail, entertainment. And supply is not keeping up with demand across California and specifically Monterey County. And like I said, I think you as a council are very aware of all these things. I don't think there's any secrets in the data that you find. So what does that mean in terms of what we have to do? Remember, our obligation is 730 units for the next 8 years to the state. We also have to look at programs. Now, as we said, the city of Greenfield, and I want to commend you as the council once again and your leadership. You did exactly what you were asked to do during the 5th cycle, which was build the required number of units. In fact, you built way more than the required number of units. No other city in the county did that to meet, and especially to meet all the income targets, including those for very low and low. No other city in the county did what you were able to do, and you should be commended for that. But this is the 6th cycle. They look at it completely independently from the 5th cycle. And so we need to look at programs. And I kind of want to talk about some of these because some of them do have commitments that come with them. And this is not saying, okay, we're going to do this tomorrow, but are things to look at based on what the state is asking of us and what the public is saying to us. Number one is, I think we all understand, is promoting construction of all different types of housing for all income levels in all areas within the city that meet applicable zoning. We just need to build. Let's get it done. As we talk in many of these meetings, We don't build the housing, as you know. The Public Works doesn't build the housing. It falls on development, whether nonprofit or private developers, to build these housing. But we need to make sure there's a culture in Greenfield where they can. And for the most part, we've done that. We've really made it so that it's easy for a developer to come in here and build their projects. Some of the things that we've talked about that are going to be kind of recommendations from the public. A rental registry list. This is something to track where our landlords are. Really look at, and every program here requires implementation, but to make sure that we know where our landlords are and that which units are rented, so that when these issues about dilapidated housing units come up and things like that we have a better understanding at the city level of those units and contacts, really, of who we talk to in terms of landlords, and putting a little more pressure on landlords to do their part. And when we have these tenant landlord disputes, it's not saying that we are the deciding party in these, but one thing is that the community in our outreach the last 3 months, they want the city to help. They certainly come here asking for, well, how can we get through some of these issues? And although we don't directly get involved in every tenant landlord issue, we do need to be able to provide those resources and have access to someone who does have jurisdiction or a group that will advocate on their behalf. Inspection upon sale ordinance. This is something that gives building inspectors the opportunity to look at a home before it sells, to identify issues before someone buys it, whether it be a tenant or a buyer. And that way we can identify any outstanding code enforcement regulations, things like that. A lot of times what will happen is someone buys a home and something comes up and they say, well, I didn't know about this. I didn't do this. And so this is part of the due diligence efforts. One is, as I mentioned, the public is really interested in having the city be more involved in housing. This is a little tricky thing because back when 15 years ago when I was here, we had a redevelopment agency in the state that gave us money for housing, and we had housing staff that came from that fund because we couldn't spend it on pretty much anything else. That fund has been gone for a long time, but they still would like somebody to come to address housing. So whether you have the budget down the road to hire someone or whether you assign someone as part of their tasks, having someone that the public knows they can turn to for housing resources. Whether it be community development, community engagement, that sort of thing. And that comes back to that coordination with the rental advocacy groups, other advocacy groups to assist tenants. A lot of the things the city, they expect the city to do this, and this is already being done by nonprofits and other groups. And we just need to get those residents to those groups and be kind of the person in the middle to guide them where they need to go. Funding and housing programs for residents. This is something that's very popular. Making a commitment to go out and get first-time homebuyers grants, rental assistance grants, housing rehab grants. We've all had these programs before, back when we got that money automatically. Now the money's still there. The state is giving a lot of money away for this type of stuff, but you got to go get it. So working with your grant writers, working with those that can implement a program like this, something that the public is definitely interested in and commented multiple times throughout the process. Survey of the condition of the existing housing stock. Basically, the last comprehensive one was done back in 1994. There was a windshield one done in the last decade. Having an understanding of what units need to be rehabilitated and a good understanding of that, something that you can think about over the next few years. The last one is the state is really pushing hard on a lot of things. A lot of zoning is being taken out of your hands. And you've seen that with ADUs, for example. They've taken a lot of discretion away from us. One of the things is that when we put these sites up for development and commit to building, then we make sure that they're allowed to build there. And so this has more to do with communities that have been resistant to housing, but it's establishing a program where there are certain sites, if you commit it to housing multiple times, meaning two times in your housing element, that you have a by right program. A by right program means no use permit. Basically, you meet standards, you meet design review, and you're approved. So that's something that the state's mandating us to do. Site inventory, 730. That's our number. So over from 2023 to 2031, that's the number of units the city of Greenfield's responsible to provide. That's broken down into income categories. You can see those. So right now, we're going to look briefly at the sites that have been identified. It's not every site in the city. That doesn't mean that if you're a site you have to build, and it doesn't mean if you're not a site identified that you can't build. We're just looking at sites that meet certain criteria, which means they're underutilized sites that can support more housing because they're zoned for do so. If you have any concerns about any of these sites or want to add certain sites, we can certainly discuss them. In other cities, this is a process that can take a separate meeting in hours because just they don't have the sites. In Greenfield, we're blessed with enough sites to accommodate our arena. I'm not concerned about that. In fact, the map you're going to see in just a second has enough room for 1,200 units. Why would you consider a site inventory above that? Because the state's going to come back and they may reject some sites. They may make some modifications. And also there's what's called a no net loss provision, which is if you develop a site that you picked, and let's say you picked it for 100 units and you only build 70, you have to make sure you make up for those 30 in your site inventory. So having a buffer is helpful to move sites around based on what developers end up doing. The distribution of the sites has to be fair throughout and in line with affirmatively furthering fair housing. But as we said, all sites in Greenfield are valued the same when it comes to AFFH. And that's the finding we're making and going to present to the state. Whether they accept it or not, we'll see, but that's the finding. Some of these sites are in various stages of development. Like I said, we're focusing on the vacant lots or large lots with high development potential. It does not include all our approved sites. So there are some projects that have been approved that aren't there because they're already in process of seeking permits or already getting permitted and we just can't count them. That we do not have to do any new annexations to meet our sites. We do not have to upzone any property to meet our sites. That's a big one. A lot of cities are dealing with some major upzoning. And anytime you do upzoning, that can certainly be an interesting discussion within the local community that's going to get upzoned. When I mean upzone, going from single family to apartments or intending to have more units than you had originally planned for. Another thing is a lot of cities are looking at converting commercial space. The state laws have been were passed last year that allow for you to convert strip malls, old buildings, commercial buildings, industrial buildings. None of that is proposed here. We need more commercial services, not less. We do not have a shortage of commercial inventory. So we need more commercial inventory, so we're not proposing any of that. Some of the mixed use sites, we may need to look at some rezoning. And once again, this map does not consider ADUs. ADUs do get counted in your 730, but since they're one at a time, they're not on the map. This is I was just going to show you here. This is the chart that you have to put it in. The state has an official sheet that you have to put all this stuff into. I'm taking the liberty of doing that, but here's the available sites. Basically kind of distributed evenly around the city. So when you look at them, most of your sites on the east side of the freeway are based around the Walnut Avenue specific plan area, the EAH site, the self-help housing project, all that corridor around Walnut and Third, where most of the vacant land over there is. One site down on Oak. And then on the west side, you've got the Miramonte annexation site a couple years ago. That's a map of units that's been waiting for construction. You have some other properties that single farm homes that were out before Greenfield grew that way, that are still that way. So you have a number of those types of parcels out there. You've got the Housing Authority's parcel, number 17, and then you have the Scheid project that was approved a few years ago south of the high school. Here's some more in detail. Once again, when you look at the site opportunities, these are just focusing on what the inventory of vacant or nearly vacant land we have. Like I said, I'd be happy to take any questions on any specific sites or concerns you have about any sites or any sites that you want to add. But compared to other cities, we definitely have the capacity. Like I mentioned, all these sites can fit up to 1,200 units, and our number is 730. So I feel good about where we are without having to do any drastic programs to accommodate our housing needs. Last slide. So next steps on where we are. Would love to get any direction from you tonight as far as where we are regarding our draft AFFH programs, where we are including our site inventory, where we are on public outreach. This does not mean that public outreach is over. We still have ways to go, but we are getting to the point where we're going to have to put out a public review draft of the document. It's our goal to put it out sometime later this month. My goal is to get that first admin draft to the staff, hopefully next week, with the full document. A lot of the stuff is the tables, the charts, a lot of the stuff that you saw there that's already set, but really the things that are most of biggest interest to the public and to the commission and council are going to be the sites and the programs. So what programs we want to incorporate. If there are things that we don't have in there, we want to make sure we hear comment. We have to put the public review draft out for the community for 30 days. So as soon as once staff gets the admin copy, they review it, and then you have to release it, and then it's available for anyone to comment on for 30 days. And every comment that gets submitted over that 30-day period must be responded to in the document. So definitely there's an opportunity to do that. Then only after 30 days and then a 15-day review period to respond to all those comments are we allowed to even submit it to the state. So we're planning to submit it sometime late in August. We'll get it back in November, and then we make the changes that the state asks us to make in November. And our goal, once again, is to have it adopted by the deadline on December 15th, and then HCD certifies it after that. So that's where we are calendar-wise, getting ready for a public review draft. But want to be clear that there's still opportunities for public comment to drive this document, that it's not that once you see what the document looks like, then there's that 30-day period to make comments, do that. So that's what I have. I know it's kind of a lot of information, but it's a big chunk of your general plan, and it's something that I know the community is very passionate about right now. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have. And like I said, I have more opportunity to go a little more depth tomorrow with the Planning Commission about some of the other chapters of the document. But this was the shorter version. But I thank you for allowing us to go through this, because it is an important update for our community. So thank you very much. And obviously, I'm here to answer any questions or take any comments that anyone has to help the process along. Thank you.
Any comments?
Yeah, I do have a lot of comments. First of all, thank you, Mr. Salma. It was a really good presentation. And one of the things that I really want to emphasize is the fact that you took the initiative of creating those workshops for the public. That was really meaningful. And also the partnership that you have created with TCA. Thank you for mentioning that, because I know that TCA has a big responsibility when it comes to the housing issues in Monterey County, and they're going to be working with several jurisdictions. But may I also suggest that you reach out to Landwatch, because I know that that's something that they have in their radar as well. And also the Monterey Bay Central Labor Council. I know that we just had a meeting with them. I participated in a meeting with them last week, and that's going to be part of their agendas moving forward, is attending different meetings, council meetings, and talking specifically regarding our housing numbers that we have to provide. I know that there's some information here that you provided when I'm glad to see the whole transportation part. In the beginning of the slideshow, I was thinking, when is the public actually mentioning, the biggest issue is transportation? And as a past MST representative, now I know we have Ms. Ariana there, councilwoman in MST. That was a big issue that we saw for several years now. But I know that one of the biggest push for us in South County is going to be having, now that we have that facility in South County, is really going to help when it comes to being able to provide buses out there to the community in a more timely manner. But again, our biggest thing that comes with housing is the shortage that we have with bus drivers. We don't have enough bus drivers or people wanting to apply for that job. And I really like also, then I want to point out the fact that you mentioned the environment being one of the crucial issues that we have when it comes to housing. I know that something that I did not see in the slide, but I would recommend that you add it there as well, is having that clean drinking water. And that is a huge issue, specifically when it comes to South County, that we don't really talk about. And I know that Greenfield has had some issues with areas that don't pertain to our jurisdiction, but I know with the housing development coming in play, that's something that we want to be able to move forward as well. And my third comment would be also working with Ag Commissioner Hidalgo, because I know in the past, and City Manager Wood, you could help me out with this as well. We've had issues with several developments where at the moment when we had Commissioner Gonzalez at the time, he would give us different numbers when it came to that buffer zone of protection. And so we really want to make sure that the commissioner himself is aligned with the numbers and he is not biased and he really states to his numbers, because that really kind of pushed us here in Greenfield when it came to certain developments. So again, working with the Commissioner's office would also really help, because I know that just having that buffer zone eliminated quite a chunk of that proposed housing development that came forward to the city council at the moment. So, but other than that, I think it was wonderful. Thank you for being able to just put this together. Thank you for working with Centro Binacional, because like you mentioned, there is languages that are not written or you can't translate them. So thank you for working with Dr. Martinez on that. And I'm just very excited about this. And I know we are going to get a lot of comments, but thank you for the wonderful presentation that you provided.
Thank you. Any other questions? No.
I have a comment. I want to thank you for how simplified this is, especially on the map. So we can see exactly the locations that you're specifying here. I think the community, as you said, this is a hot topic in our community. Housing is huge. The need for housing is still really huge, even though we did meet our RHNA numbers the last cycle. And you're just working in the schools, I see how many families live together, multi-generational families, and even people who are not related are living in households with multiple families. So housing in Greenfield is a major issue. I'm really excited to see what it's going to bring and more of the public coming out and speaking on it. I know you posted your workshops and I attended one and it was very well attended, and I look forward to seeing how much more involved our community gets for our housing issues. So thank you so much for presenting this today.
Thank you. I really enjoy your presentations. I did attend the first workshop. Councilmember Anchalan, Mayor Pro Tem Anchalan, who was there also. One thing that we did notice that there was a big need for more workshops, bringing in more services for the people in our community. And I think that you did talk about that, because as much as you want to talk about, how many houses we're going to build and everything, people still keep coming back to the problems that they're having right now. I think we've had people that have made comments about them here in public, and they've called in about the really horrible things that are happening right now to a lot of our tenants. I really think it's necessary that we continue with these workshops, maybe, not the ones that you're doing, but if we can really get the city to bring in some more. I'm really excited about all of this and learning more. This is the first time I've ever dealt with anything like this. So thank you for making it very simple, because it's easy to understand. Thank you.
A lot of information, Brent. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. This is still a work in progress, correct? We can give feedback, we'll meet with you and talk about this.
Yeah. So like I said, in terms of next steps tomorrow, we'll be talking to the Planning Commission about the same topics, going over kind of more of the little more detail, the chapters in the housing element. There are 11 sections of the housing element. I really only covered 4 of them. But those are, a lot of the rest of them are more about data and things that, that It's an interesting read. I think if you're really interested in statistics and numbers, and the state has a 15-page checklist of everything you have to put in this document. So making sure that everything is in there so that when we send it to the state, my hope is that we do it once. They're going to give us comments, and then we address those comments, and then we get certified. You have some cities, and these are cities that have been reluctant to housing, that have been in front of HCD 4 to 5 times because they just can't get it right. We're in a good position in terms of availability of sites and availability and just the attitude here in Greenfield. I mean, as we mentioned, I can't give you enough credit to fulfill all your 5th cycle last time. Nobody did that, and you did. And so it comes down to not only filling our 6th cycle just on the low income side, but filling it above moderate side, because it comes back to having a community that, is vibrant. And we want to increase resources. We want to bring more. We need more transit dollars. We need more, investment in our water system. We need more investment in our sewer system. These are potential constraints that are going to be a deterrent to housing if we don't get the funding to improve the capacity of our sewer plant. If we can't make sure we have a reliable, sustainable water supply, if we can't get those interchange improvements, the state, is talking the talk, and now it's time to walk the walk. And by doing these reports and doing these analysis and sending it to them, I think the message gets sent loud and clear from Greenfield is that we're doing our part. Now you invest with us. So yes, the next step, as I mentioned, would be if any of you from the council or the public still wants to comment, there's going to be that opportunity. If you want to reach out to me individually, I'm more than happy to address any of these slides with you in more detail or questions that you may have. But our next goal is really to get to the public review draft. As I mentioned, staff will have an opportunity to review it. When they give the green light, we'll post it. It'll be available here. It'll be available online. And working with the groups that Councilman Martinez, you mentioned, Landwatch is providing a letter to every jurisdiction, and they've reached out to us, and we're looking forward to continuing that dialogue, and other organizations are as well, making sure that their comments are put in depending on what's presented in the public review draft. So definitely want to make sure that you also have the opportunity to meet with me, meet with the staff, and then we'll do that public review. And then depending on what we learn from that, we'll make edits. We'll make changes as needed based on the public review and then based on what the state says, so that when we come to you in a formal capacity next time, you'll have had an opportunity to review not only the draft document, but all the public changes to the document, the state requests the document, and then hopefully you'll be ready to make the action to adopt the document. So we'll be back here in the formal meeting in about 5 months' time. In the meanwhile, we'll be doing a lot of things in public outreach and all those things I just talked about.
And if may I add, Mayor, with your permission, I really wanted to, something that I remember right now, Mr. Sama, is in your slide where you talk about the low moderate income population mapped by census, by the census block group. It is alarming, and all of us kind of looked at it, and that's Greenfield. But hopefully also, I don't know if you could hear me out there, but if not, let me know. The alarming thing too is that the population of Greenfield, City Manager Wood, we only got 70% of our population counted in the last census. So if it's alarming now just to see these numbers here, knowing that only 70% of our population got counted, where's the other residents, where's the other population at? So that's why it's really important also, and emphasizing with the folks out there, the community, our residents, that they need to get counted, because this is the situation that a lot of cities are placed when we get an undercount as well. But also just kind of FYI, so that the public know, only 70% of your peers got counted.
That is a problem that affects funding all up and down the line. Mr. Slomo, do you need from us tonight?
No, just your comments and any questions or specific concerns or requests you have about the programs we identified or the sites that we identified. If you have anything tonight, I can take that. If you like to comment separately or meet with me, we can do that. But just so that you're aware, those are, like I said, those are the big things that change from past elements. The biggest things that we're looking at is the programs that we may be committing to. I mean, it's easy to say here, for me to write a recommendation that says, oh, we're going to commit to having someone for housing. It's a different thing for the city manager to, say where there's budget for that. I'm looking at Paul here. The commitments of, first time home buyers programs, those are big commitments, and you're going to need to find grant money. I mean, we've had meetings where we've answered some of these questions. One of the things we did after the meeting, I know that Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Ortiz attended, was we just listened. We took a lot of comments. We didn't answer much. So the next meeting, we answered a lot of questions, and we had quite an engaging dialogue on Facebook Live and here in the council chambers and English, Spanish, everything, kind of trying to answer some of those questions. It was very, very interesting, in terms of going through the process. Why, some of these developments, like the development that was approved south of the high school, why hasn't it been built yet? Why hasn't this other subdivision been built? What's going on with anything in the city, whether it be retail, whether it be some of the housing projects that we've already approved. Remember, we're doing our part. We're approving these projects. At the end of the day, the builders need to build it, which there are things like interest rates. There are things like the cost of construction materials that unfortunately we don't control. But we make sure we have a positive environment. And so what can we do? First time home buyers is a huge program, right? It was something, from my perspective as your consultant, and I've lived here and been through this. I was here when we had active first-time home buyers programs, rental assistance programs. I was here when we had housing rehab programs. The impact that can make on an individual in their life is it's amazing. But it requires funding. It requires staffing. And so I'll certainly recommend we should do this. And the public is saying, where can I have access to this? But if there are any concerns about any of the programs we've put out there for you, please let us know so that, if we're, overcommitting or we're, saying something that we shouldn't, that's really the kind of feedback I'm looking for. And then any of those sites that you saw, if there's something that you said, well, you didn't look at this, or I really want you to pick this site, or why'd you pick this site? I don't think this is the best.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the report. We'll take a look at it and reach out to you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move to J1, public hearing. A resolution of City Council, City of Greenfield approving issuance of California Municipal Finance Authority qualified bonds.
I will be recusing myself from this item.
Very good. Thank you. And legal, give me a little bit of assistance here. I know we need to reopen the public hearing. We discontinued the public hearing last time. So do we do staff report first?
Yes, yes, you'll want to do the staff report.
Okay.
You did open the public hearing.
And then I continued.
And then you continued it, so it's technically still open.
Right.
So the staff report that would help you figure discussion.
Okay. I will go ahead and call for the staff report then.
We're trying to get Rob Mullane on.
Okay.
And just so that everyone knows, this item was republished.
Okay. Go ahead, Rob.
Right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the Greenfield City Council. I presented a very similar staff report last time, and I'll keep it brief again. I want to say at the outset that we have in the audience Dave Egan from EAH Housing, who is familiar with the financing process, as well as Anthony Stubbs, who is a representative with the California Municipal Finance Authority, and he is intimately familiar with the TEFRA bond process and is also available for questions on the council, because these things are a little bit esoteric even for staff to understand. So as a matter of background, the Greenfield Commons development is being developed by EAH Housing. This is on the northeast corner of Walnut and 3rd. It is currently in the building permit stage, so they're rapidly moving towards groundbreaking. But an important part of the project is the financing, and the EAH has requested $80 million or up to $80 million under the Tax Equity Fiscal Responsibility Act. And the city, as the local municipality, is required to hold a public hearing, which you're doing this evening, and approve the financing of the project by the California Municipal Finance Authority. The adoption of the resolution approving the issuance of the requested bonds is solely for the purposes of satisfying several requirements, the TEFRA requirements, the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, and the California Government Code, sections 6500, etc. The bonds would be issued by the California Municipal Finance Authority, and these will be the sole responsibility of EH Housing as the borrower to pay back. The city has no financial, legal, or other obligation, liability, or responsible for the project, or any responsibility for the repayment of bonds. So again, this is a public hearing. It's required by, among other things, the Internal Revenue Code, and this would allow the project to secure up to $80 million in funding for the construction of the first phase of the Greenfield Commons, which is about 100 units of the 200 some odd development in the second phase. And that concludes my staff report. I'm available for any questions.
So do we need to go ahead and reopen the public hearing, or do we just continue?
I think you were well, I'll let Jennifer respond to that unless she wants me to.
Yeah, it's technically open, so you don't need to open it, but if you did open it, it really wouldn't cause any harm, so.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anybody who wants to speak on this item?
I'll be short and sweet, in full support of the agenda item in front of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I was wondering if you could explain who this housing is for, because I'm not sure what this is for.
You can reach out to staff or ask. Rob, do you want to go ahead and answer that question?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. It is slated as an affordable housing project. There's great information at City Hall on the development. And as there's some staff reports that get into the details of the breakdown of affordability. But again, Mr. Dave Egan is also on the audience, and he might want to speak to that as part of the public hearing.
Okay.
Will he be able to do that?
There is a document on the counter in City Hall, and also we're probably going to hear from the developer tonight.
So would you be voting after hearing from the developer?
If he is online, we certainly will, yes.
So I still didn't quite understand who exactly is the for, because sometimes the housing in the past has been only for farm workers or only for this person. And then it was very hard for me to find anything affordable until I was able to buy my Chispa house, which I thank Mr. Slama for helping to develop.
Okay. I see the developer online, so we can get you an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Egan, would you like to make your comments?
Sure. I'd just like to answer the question from the lady. This is a deed restricted affordable housing development, approximately 100 units. And it's a combination of low-income family and farm worker. There's roughly 27%, 30% for farm worker housing, and the rest is for folks with below market rate income levels, and it'll serve that population. And then we have a second phase that's in the works that'll be of equal size and is about a year behind construction on phase one. Phase one, which we're talking about tonight, we hope to begin construction within the next 30 days. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. If you want to reach out to staff, we can certainly get back to you on some information on that. But he had a variety of. Yeah, please.
I'd like it to be briefly addressed so that, the public will know the percentage for farm workers versus everyone else, because I had a struggle. I looked up and down South County for an apartment and they were all for farm workers. And so it's imbalanced. And also middle class people are also like, there aren't enough for them as well.
Mr. Egan, could you repeat those numbers for us again, please?
Sure. Of the 100 units in phase one, 27 will be for farm worker families. The rest will be for other families of low income status.
Thank you.
The second phase is still being made.
All right. Any other comments from the public?
Sorry, I still didn't get the second phase. Who are they for the second phase?
The second phase, we haven't completed our financing, but they will all be deed restricted for low income residents. And
right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Drew Tipton, Barbero Way. So I just want to get this straight here. We're talking $80 million in financing for 100 units. And this is only for phase one. Is the expectation then that they're going to come back next year for another 80 to 100 million for the next 100 units? That seems awfully expensive to build 100 units of housing to me. $80 million to build 100 units. We're talking almost $1 million a unit. We're talking actually about $800,000 a unit to build.
Any other public comments? Not, I'll close the public hearing.
So could he address that? The second phase, is that 80 million included in that or not? Like, because we want to know.
What's that? I'm sorry.
The 80 million, does that include the second phase or are they coming back and asking for more bonds for the second phase?
Mr. Egan, you want to address that?
Sure. The ask tonight is for up to $80 million for phase one only. It does not mean that $80 million in tax exempt bonds will be used to build phase one, but it is a maximum number so that there's enough cushion for us to increase the actual number up to that amount. But the basic answer is only for phase one, and we will go through another TEFRA hearing for phase two should we seek tax exempt bonds at that point.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments? If not, I will close the public hearing. What? Oh, do we have one?
Yes.
Oh, last second. Sorry about that, Dee. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I guess I'm a little confused, just as the lady there. If it's $80 million and this is for farm workers and low income, is there a set payment amount? Let's say if I was one of the lucky ones from the low income, what would my payments be? Have anybody figured that one out? Because I'm working in the field making $1,200 a month. There's no way I can make $2,500 a month. Thank you.
All right, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. City Council comments, review, action.
I think my only comment is, and I looked directly at you, City Manager Wood. I got confused. I got with that phase one and phase two that really threw me off because in the beginning it wasn't proposed as phase one and phase two. So I get it where members of the public mentioned that $80 million.
Right. And so I think it's important that maybe the developers kind of explain, why it's in two phases. If it's possible, why it's so much money. It seems like a lot of money. Mr. Tipton, I think is a good point. Mr. Stubbs looks like he might be able to answer that.
Mr. Egan, would you like to address those concerns? I think he's still muted.
Sorry, I think I was muted. Sorry. Yeah, the project that was originally proposed was over 200 units, and it became impossible to finance the project all at once. So we broke it into 50% chunks. So the first 100 units is in phase one, and then as we go through our financing for phase two, we'll be able to, gather the funds together and be able to start construction in a year. So, $80 million is a lot of money. We don't anticipate using all of that allocation. And again, this is a project that is not obligating the city whatsoever to backstop the financing. This is all on our company and the state of California, who's providing some financing, as well as our construction lender and CMFA, who are providing construction period tax exempt bonds.
So my question is, I think I understand here, but these bonds are sold to investors, and all we're doing tonight is allowing you to sell those bonds as tax-free bonds, correct?
That's correct.
And it has no obligation as far as the city is concerned, as far as repayment or any other obligation as far as future bonding capacity or anything like that.
Yeah, none whatsoever.
All right. Any other comments from council? And I'll need an approval of resolution 2023-98. I need a second.
I guess I'll second.
All right, been moved and second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Somebody go get Councilwoman Antoine, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, J2, introduction and first reading of an ordinance to the City Council, City of Greenfield adopting a cost recovery policy. Staff report.
Good evening, Mayor White and City Council. I'll be presenting this item tonight. This is an ordinance to adopt a cost recovery policy for the city. So as you see here, the recommendation is to adopt an ordinance adopting a cost recovery policy for nuisance abatement. One second. So as you can see on this slide here, the city does have the ability to pass ordinances, and this is based on the city's constitutional authority to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. You often hear this referred to as the police power. And this can include anything that protects the natural environment or encourages citizens to keep well-kept properties or well-maintained properties. So your city staff spends a significant amount of time and other resources addressing property-related issues. Can you hear me okay? I feel like it's coming in and out. Okay. So city staff does spend a significant amount of time addressing property-related issues. And then typically this comes in the form of just a property that doesn't comply with the city's municipal code in some way. I will point out that I've used some pictures throughout the presentation that are actual city properties. Some of these have been subject to nuisance abatement, which I'll discuss a little bit more later, and cost recovery, and some haven't, but they would perhaps have been candidates for this ordinance. So just to talk a little bit about what is nuisance abatement, the civil and penal codes both define nuisance and then also public nuisance. So a nuisance is anything which is injurious to health or is indecent or offensive to the senses or an obstruction to the free use of property. A public nuisance is one that affects at the same time an entire community or neighborhood or any considerable number of persons. For purposes of this cost recovery ordinance, a public nuisance is really anything that is in violation of the city's municipal code. So it could be, for example, substandard buildings, it could be fire hazards, it could be graffiti. So anything that violates what's already existing in the city's code. So under California law, local governments are allowed to abate these nuisances on their own if the property owner hasn't done it themselves. And this is something you've seen recently with the weed abatement process. That's a little bit different in that it's set by government code, but it's similar in that the city attempts to gather compliance from property owners. When they don't comply, the city then does the abatement itself and then charges the property owner. So that's what we're really talking about tonight, except for this expands that concept to other types of abatement, not just weed abatement. So that is, again, like I said, permitted by the California law. And so staff spends a lot of time enforcing the code, and sometimes it's done for the good of the entire community, but other times these enforcement activities are just focused on a single parcel or citizen. And so the concept here is that if something is beneficial to the entire community, it makes sense that tax dollars or community funds are used to pay for those things. But if some activity is driven by a single property owner, it makes sense that that particular property owner should pay for city staff time and resources. So to a certain extent, staff is already or is able to collect for the time it spends enforcing the code. But the only avenue available currently to the city staff is invoicing. So essentially sending a bill to a property owner. And this is aside from weed abatement, that's a little different, but they can send a bill to the property owner. The property owner either pays or doesn't. If they don't pay, there's interest or late charges accrued. The city could use a collection agency process. I don't believe that it currently does. But beyond that, the city staff doesn't really have any recourse to recover these costs. So what this ordinance would do is make two additional avenues for collection available, and those are tax assessments and property liens. Tax assessments are on a property owner's tax bill, so their property tax bill. And then a property lien is a lien on the property so that the cost would be recovered when the property sells or is foreclosed upon. So I'm just going to talk these next few slides about some of the details within the ordinance. This doesn't go through everything, but it's just kind of the highlights. So, for example, abatement costs. The costs that would be charged to a property owner could include all direct and indirect costs. So, for example, it could include fencing, which would be a direct cost, but also the time the fire chief or his staff spend hiring the fencing company to come out and put it up. So that would be an indirect cost. So all of those costs could be included in the cost recovery. A responsible party is any person who creates the nuisance. It typically is a property owner, but it could be some other person, kind of depending on the circumstances. As I mentioned, the ordinance would allow for 3 different kinds of collection. Those would be a special assessment on a property tax bill, a property lien, or it just becomes a personal obligation of the owner, which is kind of what I talked about before. It would go through a collection process. If there's more than one property owner or more than one responsible party, they're jointly and severally responsible, meaning they're all responsible, but also if one or many are unable to pay, then it's the responsibility of the one that can. There is an administrative review process. So if, for example, a property owner sent a bill and they disagree with the items on the bill, or they disagree with the amount or anything like that, they can file it for an administrative review, which is an informal hearing in front of the city manager. And he can then either affirm or reduce those costs at his discretion. There's a couple other pieces of the ordinance that are important to know. So there's a multiple response ordinance. And what this does, this is the example usually is like a loud party or something that's a disturbance of that sort. If staff has to go out multiple times, maybe the first time is a warning, but if then the problem is not resolved, then that could be subject to cost recovery, where staff would actually charge that property owner for them having to go out multiple times. And multiple response is defined as either is more than one response for the same or similar incident per 120 days. So that just gives some perspective. And then there's some other provisions that are just kind of one-off things that could occur that are addressed in the ordinance. So those are things like animal control violations. So either there's an animal at large, a menacing animal, or an animal that's creating excessive noise. So if city staff has to address those situations, if they occur multiple times and staff, gives a warning and then has to continue trying to enforce, that could be charged to the owner. In that case, it's the animal's owner. False alarms. This is something that happens when a business typically has an alarm system and the alarm system goes off, but there's no problem. So they have like the alarm goes off and there's no actual burglary or there's no actual robbery occurring. And if that happens multiple times and they don't fix their alarm system and city staff has to respond, that could be charged to the property owner or business owner. Dangerous properties. I think we've kind of talked about that, but that can be anything that's a danger to the community, whether it's a building that had a fire and is being accessed by homeless individuals and it's unsafe and the property owner doesn't do anything to remedy the situation and staff has to fence the property. That's one example. And then again, fire, rescue, emergency operations, and hazmat responses. And this, again, always depends on the circumstances, but if it's something that could have been avoided, there was previous warning, there's really no reason that city staff should have had to address that type of thing. Again, this is a little bit more about the 2 additional types of recovery. So we have the special assessment. I just wanted to kind of outline the process. So even the person who will be paying the cost will receive an invoice from the city, just like any other kind of invoice. And given an opportunity to pay. And it's not until they don't pay that it would go to a special assessment or a property lien. If anything was going to be placed on the property tax roll as a special assessment or a property lien, that would come to a public hearing in front of the city council. So the property owner would first receive a notice with at least 15 days notice that there would be a public hearing. And then city council would be confirming that those costs should be incurred by the property owner and placed either on their property tax bill or as a lien on their property. And even after the city council makes that finding or adopts that confirms that decision, there's still a 30-day opportunity for the property owner to comment or protest. And then finally, it would either be sent to the tax assessor to be placed on the property tax bill or sent to the recorder to be placed as a lien. And with that, Do you have any questions for me? Also, there's staff who could answer more particular questions about situations that could occur where this would come up, or any of the pictures that I've provided in the report.
I think we will go to the the public hearing and then ask our questions.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Does anybody have any questions on this item?
I have a quick question. I don't know if you spoke on it and I just missed it, but say it goes to a public hearing through the council. The person, for whatever reason, hadn't got the notice and finds out after the fact. Would they be able to pay before the city puts a lien or?
Yeah, similar to weed abatement, where if they pay any time before that final action, then they can avoid the assessment. And even when they do pay, if they do, then the lien or the assessment is released. So staff would contact the assessor and say, hey, they paid, please remove the assessment or the lien.
Okay.
Anybody from council?
If I can just add to that. So again, there is a process that we go through to ensure that we contact the property owner. So it's not like we just show up, we slap a fence around it. We go to great lengths to contact the property owners and to work with them to make sure that they are being responsible for their property. So these are not situations that we immediately take action on. There's a long process, and when it gets to the point that an assessment has been taken against them, or it goes to the county assessor, I can, at least on our behalf, I can tell you that there's at least a minimum of 5 attempted contacts, and at least one of those would involve a certified letter.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers? Now it looks like we do have one hand raised.
Hello.
Go ahead, V.
I have a question. If any of the council members or anybody, residents that, especially the council members, go around town and the attorney is just explaining of all the nuisance and everything. I didn't watch from the beginning right away, but I don't think I've seen anything that has to do with motors that are on the floor, cars that probably should be junk. Wouldn't that be also a nuisance? And by the way, I'd like to thank Chief Langberg. He's doing a great job on this abatement, and I know they work really hard. Thank you, Chief.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments?
Is there a list of things that are public nuisances? Like, for example, I personally feel, and I've commented on this before, that the roots of many trees are uprooting concrete. And my husband actually, in his wheelchair, fell in a different city. But we have similar problems. I consider that a dangerous public nuisance. And how is a city, held accountable for that? I'm sure there are other people besides myself that are very upset that these kind of things are happening and that we're planting trees, our city's planting trees that I know will grow huge roots and then uproot, and it's happening already. But I'd also like to know, where's the list of these nuisance things? And I'm concerned about the city manager being the only one with that much authority to reduce costs or whatever. And there should be somebody else as well, separate from that department, maybe a sitting council member or whoever, but, to have kind of like more than one person be in charge of, something like that, to have that much discretion. But, also, like I said, the public should be maybe sent out letters saying, oh, this is a public nuisance. And the other is, as I said, there are cars that blocking, the sidewalks from handicapped, disabled people. And My husband, for example, would have to go into the street, which it's still happening. And I don't see code enforcement going around and citing these cars that blocking sidewalks. They're parked right on the sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any other public comment? If not, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council for questions. Any questions from council?
I have questions about the, what would constitute like an excess use of emergency services? So I know we're talking about like the weeds and how many times to go out and how many notices, but in terms of like police, using that resource, and then what would constitute that being like excessive or to where a person would need to be billed for those services?
Yeah. So some examples that I've seen in other places that may or may not be applicable here, but like if someone were to trespass, so this happens in like coastal cities where someone trespasses over an embankment and then falls off a cliff. And it's like the emergency responders have to respond, but it's really their own negligence that caused that issue. So that's one example. So it's not necessarily excessive, but sometimes it's self-inflicted. And it would really be dependent on the circumstances with that sort of thing. And the other example I've seen, and typically a city would have a separate ordinance to address this, but they would have a DUI cost recovery. So where law enforcement had to respond when they respond to a DUI, that person who, if convicted, would be responsible for the cost of the response because they should not have been driving under the influence.
Any other questions? Just a couple of things. So there is a process involved, and these would just be for properties that are nuisances or instances that are nuisances. That's correct.
Right. Yeah. And so the city staff would have to probably establish, based on what's in the ordinance, kind of their own internal process, how these things actually get accomplished. But exactly. And a public nuisance, as I mentioned, is really any violation of the city's municipal code, which is published on the city's website. So that's accessible to anybody.
And it's basically just a cost recovery method to help to encourage people to take care of their own properties.
Yeah, and it doesn't change what is and what isn't a violation, so that this doesn't change any of the code. So the code, what is a violation of the code is the same today as it was yesterday, but this just allows staff to recover the cost of enforcing that if it's the property owner's negligence, really.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else with council?
I just want to say, I think this is a good idea because it's beautifying our city at the same time in our neighborhoods. I think we do need to be a little more, no, I wouldn't say that. Like we just, if any of the community members have questions on what the ordinances are, they're published on our website. And what, is identified, I guess, as a nuisance. There's a lot of information you can get from our website. So I just wanted to state that too.
Great. I know I've talked to a city manager about a number of different properties around town, so I'm happy to see this come along, and not just weed abatement, but conditional properties, and you get into health and safety, and we really need to address a lot of things. Right. So this is introduced and read by title only, first reading, right? So we need to do no action.
You do need to, there's a proposed motion on your screen, but you do need to make a motion and vote.
Just one more follow-up question for clarification. The confirmation by city council piece, just to kind of address a little bit of what the public comment was about, like city manager would having like ultimate and final say, then there is a process where the city council can reverse that, but it's only in the case where the city manager's decision is not supported by substantial evidence, right? So there should be evidence with whatever decision our city manager would make, and then if there wasn't, that would give council leeway to change those fees.
Right.
Okay, I'll move to introduce by title only and waive the first reading of. Oh, I'm sorry, Chief, were you gonna speak?
I just wanted to address your concerns. So this, and we'll be following probably procedures similar to weed abatement, but basically what that means is that there are several times that this would go in front of the council. So this is not a decision that's made by staff or the city manager. Ultimately, this is going to be a policy level decision that you will approve. And if it's similar to the weed abatement, and I realize this is not, but there's actually a public hearing that's involved in that, sorry about that, that's me, that it ensures that the people who are having the charges allocated against them have been given the opportunity to speak on their behalf.
Alrighty, I'll move to introduce by title only and waive the first reading of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Greenfield, adding chapter 9.80 to the Greenfield Municipal Code, adopting a cost recovery policy.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Been moved in second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Move to item K1, a resolution, City Council, City of Greenfield, appointing a Greenfield Planning Commissioner. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Yesenia de la Torre with the Community Development Department. I will be presenting the staff report regarding the Planning Commission appointment. The Community Development Department consists of, we have the Building and Planning Department with the Planning Commission. And together the Planning Department and Planning Commission help each other to carry out the planning functions for the city. The Planning Commission consists of 5 members of the community and that are not city employees, and they are appointed by the City Council and serve a 3-year term, and their term goes calendar year. Currently, we're looking to fill a vacancy of a term to be expired this December 31st, 2023. We have received 2 applications and you have copies of those. The applications came from Marcy Jones and Jose Vasquez, and they're there for your review to make an appointment and make a decision. With that, I recommend to adopt resolution 2023-99, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Greenfield, appointing a Greenfield Planning Commission member. And I believe we have one of the applicants present that might be able to answer questions that you might have to help make your decision. And with that, I can take any questions or comments.
All right, we'll move to public comments. If the candidates are in the audience, if they want to come forward, make a statement, that would be great.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Marcy Jones. I actually work for the school district down the road. I grew up here in Greenfield, and I do want to be part of the Planning Commission to go ahead and give back to my community as well as see the future of Greenfield grow. Thank you very much.
Mr. Vasquez, did you want to come forward and say a few words?
Georges, I have been in Greenfield for 25 years. I'm glad to be in the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council have any questions for candidates? Or do we want to discuss this, or do we want to make a motion?
I would like to ask a question for both. My question for both would be, what struck your interest in becoming part of the Planning Commission?
For me, it was to give back to my community, but also to be involved. Anything that we could help as citizens, that's what I'm hoping to do. Thank you.
Mr. Vasquez, would you like to answer that question too?
Thing is, I'd like to be in the planning commission because I'd like to be more guidance.
Thank you. Any other questions of council?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment for both of them. I think both of them are valued members of the community because Marcy brings the whole perspective of the district. So she has that mentality of like, okay, when it comes to like maybe in the possible future, working on, teacher adequate housing in Greenfield. And I know that the numbers of our housing developments also affect in one way or another the district. So just having that perspective in the commissioner seat would be amazing. But then also Mr. Vasquez is one of our community members who's at every single council meeting. And I say with honor, Mr. Vasquez, it's an honor having you here. You're everywhere. And he has that idea or that perspective, like he just mentioned, housing, but housing and specifically towards the senior citizens. He's at every social, working with the senior citizens. I think you still belong to the commission with the county for Alliance on Aging. So I think both of them would be so good for this position. I just can't even make a decision because both of them, you guys would bring exactly what that planning commissioner needs. Knowing that no longer we would have Tina with us, who represented the district in one way or another. Marcy, you would be perfect for this position, but Mr. Vasquez, you as well, because you bring in that perspective of housing for our senior citizens that we have, that we know and we see because of the data that Mr. Slama presented is so needed in our communities.
Any other questions or comments?
Could we open up for like public comments if anybody wants to speak on either of these candidates on their behalf?
Certainly, we're open for that now, so. Seeing none. Seeing none. I want to thank both of you for stepping forward to serve the community. I know unfortunately, we only have one spot open at this point. If you don't get it tonight, don't give up. It's
Come back in December.
yeah, come back. Do I hear a motion? Does anybody want to bring anything forward there?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to appoint Jose Vasquez to the planning commission.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
All right, then move to second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, congratulations, Mr. Vasquez. All right. We are ready to adjourn to closed session.
Announce the closed session item.
Okay.
City Council will be discussing one item in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Conference with labor negotiators, the agency designated representative is city manager, and the employee organization of the Greenfield Police Officers Association.
Pretty good. Thank you. We convened the open session. There was nothing to report from closed session. We'll move to city attorney report.
I have nothing to report.
All right. City manager report.
Nothing to report.
That's quick. Meeting's adjourned.
Anne has something.
Up. And
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll get that to you. Oh, congratulations. Can I just ask, Anne, in the announcement that you guys put out, we had talked about, I don't remember if it was actually in the meeting publicly or it was when you and I talked, Paul, about actually putting out like what encompasses District 1, just to make sure like people know what that is, you know, if they live within those boundaries. Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
all right. Meeting's adjourned.